Welcome to a new tutorial. In this one, we're going to be working with class-based views. And if you'd like to follow along, you can just go to our Dream blog, GitHub repository. You can clone or download this project, and this is what we're going to be using in the tutorial. We're basically going to be converting the function-based views that we currently have into their equivalent class-based views. So once you have everything in your editor, then let's get started. So let's go ahead and open up posts views.py, and these are the views that we've used in creating the post list and the post detail, post create, post update, and post delete views for our app. And we're basically going to convert these into class-based views. I'm going to keep them here just for reference, and I'll just add the corresponding class-based view right above it so that we can compare them directly afterwards. And so if you don't know what a class-based view is, it's basically just a view that handles the request in the same way as a function view does, but they've been designed to handle different request methods in a much cleaner and better way. And Django also claims that they can be used for a lot more advanced work. Now, I personally don't use class-based views that often. However, I do see the value in them. And sometimes when you compare them directly with an equivalent function-based view, you can really see how much code it saves you from writing over and over. And so I do believe that they can be quite handy. So here we have the index view, and I'm actually just going to run the server. And this is kind of like our home page. So we can see all of the posts that we have here, which are like our featured posts. And if we go to the blog, then we can see a list of them. And if we click on an individual one, we get the detail view and so on. So this index is like the home view. So we're going to go ahead and create a class that will handle this request in the same way. And to do that, we're going to first go ahead and import the Django's views. So we'll say from django.views.generic import view. So this is a class-based view that we're going to inherit from. So we'll just come down here and we'll say class, and I'll just name it kind of the same way. So index view, which will inherit from that view. And so one of the nicest things about class-based views is that you can specify what methods of the request you'd like to handle. So for example, we can define a get method, and this just takes in self, request, and then args, and then keyword args. And here we'll just put in the logic that would correspond to whatever we wanted to do on a get request. And so this is basically everything here except for the if request.method is post, then handling the post request. But other than that, rendering it to the index.html, that is what we would like to do in our get request. So what we're going to do is just copy that over there. So we're going to grab those same variables, and then I'll say return this render, and then we can pass in request, and then I'll grab this context object here. And if we take a look where this form is coming from, that's this over here. So I'm going to actually bring that in just like that. And then we can define the post method, which is what we'll do if we get a post request. And that just takes in the exact same arguments that we have in the get request. And then here we'll basically just do whatever we had here under the if request method is post. So we get the email, and I'm actually just going to say .get instead of access it from a dictionary. So we have the email, then we create the new sign up and save it just like we have here. And at the end, I'll just say return redirect to home, which should be one of the URL names. If we check blog URLs, and okay, we'll just add the name here. There we go. So that will redirect us basically back to the same page, but at least we're adding this in here. And that's pretty much it. We basically just define the get method and we define the post method, and we place the certain logic corresponding to that method underneath it, like we would if we were just defining it as a function. So we'll just take the index view and bring that into the URLs here, and we'll just space this out a little bit better. And so I'll add all of these at the end. So we have index view, and then I'll just make a copy of this. So we have index view, and then we have to call .as view. And this is just what's required when you use a class-based view. So we need to pass it in like this. And if we check the server's running, so let's go back to the home page and we can see that it's still working. And if we come down, then here we have the subscribe, and we can actually also import the messages framework so that we can see when we've submitted that form request. So we'll say from django.contrib import messages, and then we'll just come down here and here we'll say messages.info of that request, and we'll just say successfully subscribed, and let's go back. Cool, then we'll just add an email in here, and just make sure that you also have your MailChimp API keys set up in the settings.py file if you want that to actually work. And let's just go into the admin and we'll take a look and see here under signups. There we can see we have the email that was just passed into the form. And so now we've successfully converted this first view into a class-based view. So now we can take a look at the post list view. And Django has what's called these generic views, which basically eliminate the need for you to go and specify the same logic over and over. And these generic views normally just represent the CRUD type of views. So list, delete, update, create, and get. And so we can inherit from those generic views here to basically eliminate the logic that we always pass in. So we'll say import from views.generic. We'll also import the list view, the detail view, the create view, the update view, and the delete view. So all of these views we're going to make use of. And then we'll just copy the list view one, come down, and now right here above the blog, which we can also rename to have a better understanding of this. So this is post list, and this can be post detail. And then we'll just come back here and change these as well. So post detail, post list, and there we go. And then here we can say class. This will be our post list view, which inherits from the list view. And all we need to do is pass in the model when we do this. So we say the model is the post. And right away you could actually start using this. So we'll bring this here and we'll just copy the one view here, and this will become the post list.as view. And so if we go back and refresh this, then we get an error and it says that it's looking for the post/postlist.html. And the reason for this is because when you use a generic class, then Django is actually just handling a lot of the logic, which includes the name of the template that you're using. And so in our case, because we're using this post.html file, we can also override that. So we'll just say that the template name equals to post.html. And now we can go check that out. And now it just gives us another error. We're going to fix a couple of these. So reverse for post update, where it's receiving arguments for an ID. And so let's just search for post.id. Now the reason for this is because when you use a class-based view, the URL path needs to take in a primary key, not an ID. So we're going to change this from ID to primary key, and then we can go back here to the URLs and we'll change these to primary keys as we get to them. But let's just see if this is working. And okay, I see that I'm actually using the post detail, not the post list. So let's just cut this out and come back here. And we're meant to be using blog.html. So now let's try this again. And there we go. Okay, so now that's rendering out. But we saw previously that we had a list of these posts that we're displaying. And that's also because of the template variable name that we're using to represent the query set. So if we take a look here, the context variable is query set. However, by default, the context variable for the query set we're passing in is object list. Again, that's something that Django's class handles for you. So we can also override that, and we just say that it's the context object name. And in our case, this is the query set, which is what we did over here. And so if we take a look at this, now there's a bunch of other things that we need to specify here. Firstly, we have this pagination, which is taking place. Now, if you're paginating in a class-based view, you actually don't need to do any of this. You can simply just come here and say paginate by, and in our case, I'll just say 1 so that we can see how it works. And we're also passing in this form here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that form like we did, which is this email sign up form. So we'll just bring that here again. Now, because this is a list view, we don't need to go and specify the get method because this already is a get method. But what we can do is, in order to pass in more context, we can use another method, which is the get context data method. So if you just say define get, you'll see all these prompts here, and we're going to use get context data. And then we just say that the context equals to this, and we'll say return that context. And this context is a dictionary in the same way that it is over here. So all we need to do is just pass in all of this into the context. So we'll just paste that there, and there we go. Then we'll just grab the most recent and the category count, and we'll just paste them inside here. And then the page request variable, I'm just going to set equal to page, like that. And so this is just so that we pass in all of the context like we did have here in this function-based view. And like that, we pretty much have completed the post list view. So let's just go back here and refresh this. And now we can see that we have one post showing up. And if I come here and say page equals 2, then we get the second one, and etc. But now if we take a look here at the template, which is the blog.html, and scroll down, here we have the pagination, and we can see that it's not showing up here. Now this is because the variable that we're using to reference the page object is called query set. However, if we go here and print, actually we can do it before adding it all in, say print context, and let's just bring it up here in the terminal. And okay, let's just make sure we place this in the right place. Refresh this. Now let's see here. You can see this is a dictionary, and we have paginator, which is the paginator object. But then you can see that we have this page object variable stored in the dictionary, and it says page 2 of 3. And then it also says is paginated is true. So this is now what we use instead of what we had before, which is this query set. So instead of that, it's now page object. And then we can just copy it and place it where it needs to be. So if query set has previous and has next, and let's come back, and okay, now let's just make sure that we have dot number there, and there we go. So now if we click, you can see that it's working. And so that is now the post list view working. And what we can actually do is just come here and say this is self.form, so that it references the email form. And we'll do the same thing here, because currently it's listed here at the top, and this could be some problems if we have multiple forms in the views. So like this, it's a little bit better. And this isn't meant to be there. This is meant to be here inside the get method of our class view. So it's referencing email sign up form. And okay, now we can do the detail view. So we'll come here and we'll say post detail view, which inherits from the detail view. And again, we're going to specify the model as post. We'll then set the template name as what we have here, which is post.html. And also we're passing in the context object variable as post. So we're going to change that as well, just like how we did here. So context object name is post. And then we have a post request that's going on. So we'll need to handle that. And we also have in the get request, if the request.user is authenticated, then we're creating a view in our view counts. And then we also have context. So we're going to add all the context in the get context data method that we have here, like in the same way. And I'm actually just going to copy it. And so we have category count, we have most recent, and we have this here, we have post, which is getting that object. And instead of getting it like this, we actually have a built-in method on our class that's specific for the detail view, which is the get object method. So you can see there, and if you just click it, then there it is. And we can actually get rid of the query set. That's not entirely necessary. And we'll just say object equals to that. And then we just have to make sure that we return that object. And basically what's happening here is that this method is getting called every time the detail view is rendering. So essentially what we want to do is call this logic here every time the get object method is called. So we can just copy and paste that there. And we can then say, instead of request, this is self.request and self.request. And then we can, let's just bring it like this. And we'll say that the post is equal to object because we're getting it from this super call. So then at the end of the method, we are returning that object. And so that's how we can then create the view. Then we'll just make sure we have, so we have form, which I see here is being put in twice. So I'm going to remove the one. And we have post going in, which is fine. We already have most recent and category. And we need to put in form, but in this case, it's the comment form. So what I'm going to do is just copy that line there, and I'm going to bring it here to the top, and I'll just get rid of all those arguments. So we're saying that the form for this view is the comment form, and then we're passing it into the context using self.form, which is correct. And then we'll just have to define a post method, which again takes self. We'll pass in request args and keyword args. And then we just take all the logic that we have here. So we'll say if form.is valid, and all of this seems fine. However, here when we're saying instance.post equals post, that's obviously undefined. So all we need to do there is just say self.get object. Basically, we're just assigning this post as the instance for the post. Then we save the form. And we need to say the primary key is the keyword argument for the post detail view. And right before if form is valid, we can just bring this here. Actually, we'll copy it from there. So we're passing the request.post into that form and then check if form is valid. And we don't need the or none there. So we just pass the request in like that. And that seems to be everything. So let's take the post detail view and we'll bring it here into our URLs. Then I'm just going to copy this and we'll comment that one out. Make sure we pass in primary key as the argument into the URL, and then bring our view here and say .as view, and our server's running. So let's just refresh this, and it's saying post detail with keyword arguments ID again. And this is most likely coming from our model. So let's just go to the post model. And we're just going to replace ID with primary key. Cool. Let's try this again. Okay. Now if I click, and okay, we're getting this error now. So let's just go back here to the URLs and we'll change this to primary key for the time being. And refresh. Okay, there we go. So the get method is working correctly because we're actually getting the object. And we can see here we have one view. So let's just go into the admin and we'll go to post views. I'm just going to delete both so that we can see that it works. And if I refresh this, now we have 1, and there it is. Cool, so that means that this method here, the getObject method, is being called because that's how the post view is being created. And all of this is being passed into the context because we can see all of this here. And so that means that this view is so far working. We're just going to test the post method now. So we'll come here to add a comment and we'll just say submit. Now it says name post is not defined, which is in the views, and this is here. Okay, so we'll say post equals to self.getObject. There we go. Now we'll just come back, refresh this, and that comment isn't going to have any post assigned to it. So we'll just delete that. And we'll just delete all of them. And try this again. Submit. And there we go. Cool. So now we can see that the post method is also working. So that means that this entire view is also working. And now let's go down to the post create. And here we'll just say class post create view, which inherits from the create view. We'll specify the model as post. The template name is going to be post create.html. And when we specify the create view as what we're inheriting from, then we gain access to this form class, which is a specific attribute on the class that references the form we're using. And we don't need to instantiate it, we just need to reference it like that. And Django will just pass in everything for us. So instead of creating a post request, we don't need to do that because this is a create view. It already has that. But what we can also specify is the form valid method. So we'll say define form valid, and all we need to do is return an HTTP response from this. So we don't need to return that. We could even just say return redirect, and that would work perfectly fine. But this method is called if the form.isValid is correct. So if this check is correct, it's the exact same thing as if this method is being called. So we just pass all of this in there and just make sure that this is primary key instead. And let's just tab that in. Then the author, we can just use getAuthor and pass in self.request.user. And so that is the form valid method. Now we just need to pass the context in, which again, we'll use the context data method that we have up here. And so all we need is the title and the form, but the form is already being passed as the form class, so we don't even need to do that. So we'll just get rid of pretty much almost all of this, and we'll say title equals to create, like that. Then we'll bring this into the URLs, and here in the create URL, we'll just comment the first one out. And this will be .asView. And let's just run the server. So now let's go to create, and we can see the get request is working perfectly fine. Now let's just fill in the form. And now if we click submit, now we can see that that worked perfectly fine, and it did redirect us to this detail view of this new post. And everything seems to be working now on the post create. So let's go and we'll do the update one now as well. And this is fairly similar. So we say class post update view, which inherits from the update view. And I'm just going to copy all of this because it's pretty much exactly the same. And our methods here actually as well. So now instead of being create, this title is update, and that's all there is to it. We don't need to specify anything else. We don't need to pass in any instance into the post. It's exactly the same. So we'll just bring that here, and then let's just copy this. And we'll try this out. So let's just refresh. And if we click on update, now it's saying it got an unexpected keyword argument. And okay, we just needed to refresh the server. So there we go. Now we can see all the data is pre-populating the form. And we can go ahead and change the categories, let's say, and submit. And we can see that that was successful. So the update view is now working as well. And then we can end off with the delete view here. So this will be class post delete view, which inherits from the delete view. We'll specify the model as the post. And when we delete, we also need to specify a success URL, which is the URL that we redirect to once the object has been deleted. So I'll just say slash, or actually slash blog. So we go to the list of posts, and then we'll just bring it into the URLs. There we go. So that's running. Now we'll refresh this. And if I click on delete, then it brings up this error and it says post confirm delete.html does not exist. So basically you need to specify a file for which there'll be a form that renders, which you then confirm to delete the object. And so we'll just go into our templates and we're going to create the file which is specified here. So post confirm delete.html. And I'm just going to take everything from post.html, paste it in here, and we'll just get rid of what we don't need. So that would be everything up till the container, and we'll just put the form inside there. So like this. And we'll put the CSRF token. We'll say that the method is post. And then here we'll just put an input. We'll say that the type equals to submit. And we'll just say that the value equals to confirm, like that. And then here on the view, we're going to need to override the name of the template. The reason for this is because if we see here, it says it's going to posts/post confirm, which means it's looking inside the template directory inside the app by default. So we're going to override that to look just at post confirm delete. So meaning it will come from the templates directory that we've created. There we go. Now if we refresh this, now we can see there's confirm, and we'll just add something here, which can just be like an H1, and it'll say, are you sure you want to delete? And we can also pass in object, which is the default context variable name. So now if we take a look, are you sure you want to delete? This is a new post. And let's actually just make this a paragraph. There we go. Now if I just click confirm, now it's deleted and we only have 3. So that is the post delete view that's also working now. And if we go up to the top, we also have this search view. And this one is maybe a little bit different because it's taking in a query parameter from the GET request. So we'll use this in a class-based view as well. We'll just say class search view, which we'll just inherit from the default view and define a get method. And that takes in self, request, args, and keyword args. And we can pretty much copy all of that straight over. Now let's take that and bring it into the URLs. And then just copy this. And the server is also running. So let's refresh this and search for, let's say, first. and there is the results. We can see here's the first post, a link to it. If you click on it, there it is. Cool. So we can see that all of the class-based views are working, and I'm going to leave all of these comments in here and all the other views for reference. And ultimately, you can see how easy it is to transfer between the two, going from a function-based view to a class-based view. And we can see how there are a lot of convenient methods that are built into these views that allow you to handle one, different methods, and two, doing things like getting an object or seeing if a form is valid. And there's a lot more that you can do as well. And in this video, we haven't even looked at mixins, which basically let you create a class-based view that inherits from multiple parents. And like that, you can then start combining things like a list view with the ability to also post to that list view. And so there's quite a lot of advanced things that you can do with class-based views, but I hope that you've seen the usefulness and what you can do already with them in this video. And so if you've enjoyed it, then leave a comment down below and let us know what you thought. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.